The entire story has been concluded. This is a thrilling story with a rating as high as 99.99. For those watching on screen, please make sure your power banks are ready. Now, let the main story begin. While I was exchanging words with Wenjingi on the bed, my phone rang. A strange number appeared on the screen. Reluctantly, I picked up the phone. My voice carried an obvious impatience. "Who is this, calling so late at night?" On the other end of the line was my ex-wife, Liu Ruyan. We had been married for 6 years. She was so familiar with my voice that she knew exactly what I was doing just by hearing it. Before she even spoke, she knew what was happening on my end. Then came her sharp voice from the other side. "Jibadai, what are you doing? Who are you with?" I had originally planned to give her a chance. As soon as I heard it was her, I hung up the phone before she could finish speaking. Muttering to the disconnected phone, I said. Then I turned to Wenjingi and said, "Little darling, let's continue. Liu Ruyan is my ex-wife. We met back in high school. I was a transfer student. She wasn't just the campus goddess and his straightest student. She was also the president of the student council. She was a well-known figure at school. Her personality was dominant. She liked to take care of students who were weaker. When I first transferred to that school, I was clueless about everything. Liu Ruyan helped me get familiar with the environment. Over time, she became the person I knew best at school. I would often seek her out right after class. I'd help her with physical tasks. I was tall and strong. Before this, I was a key player on the basketball team. I had a sturdy build. My looks weren't bad either. Some people called me the new campus heartthrob. Compared to the previous campus heartthrob, Ito Makoto, I was a bit more masculine. Although Ito Makoto was handsome, he was always sickly. Liu Ruyan had often taken care of him. After I arrived, I also helped out a lot. The two families had a good relationship. Both families owned businesses. They were local aristocratic families. Near graduation, Liu Ruyan came to find me. Her eyes were red, clearly from crying. She asked me if I liked her. "If you like me, let's be together." Her sudden confession left me dazed. When she saw I didn't respond, she thought I had rejected her. She turned to leave. I grabbed her wrist and told her that I liked her too. From that day on, we became a couple. She promised to take care of me for the rest of my life. Liu Ruyan was always full of energy. Before I could finish speaking, she grabbed my hand and ran off. Liu Ruyan took good care of me. She stopped paying attention to Ito Makoto. She even acted particularly affectionate with me in front of him. We both got into the same university. After graduation, she joined the family business. I turned down her offer. I chose to work for a small startup. Since the company didn't have many senior employees, I quickly rose to become the general manager thanks to my hard work and ability. A year later, I led the team to start our own company. Business was doing quite well. Once the company stabilized, I proposed to Liu Ruyan. She agreed. We naturally got married. Our married life was happy. The following year, we had a son. Ji Yuxuan was handsome. He inherited my looks. Liu Ruyan remained the same with her strong personality. She grew up in a privileged environment. She had always been the class president. She was the president of the student council in both high school and university. She joined the Communist Youth League and the Communist Party. Every year, she made it onto the honor roll. She always felt that she had a responsibility to contribute to the underprivileged. She enjoyed taking care of them. Not only was she busy with company matters, but she also made time for charity. She often visited nursing homes and orphanages. She was busy every day. She didn't have time for the family. I suggested many times that we hire a nanny. After all, we were both busy, but she didn't like the idea. So I took it upon myself to handle the housework. I loved her so much, watching her busy figure every day. I couldn't help but feel a deep sense of affection for her. So whenever I had free time, I would grab my phone and research various recipes. I made 3 meals a day for her and our son, trying out different dishes. Her stomach wasn't good. When she was unwell, I would brew medicine and massage her stomach. I kept thinking how great it would be if I could take her pain away. My attentiveness kept her energetic every day, looking radiant in front of others. Even her close friends and classmates would say, "We envy you both so much." But when did our family start to show cracks? It all began when Ito Makoto returned to Japan. I remember it clearly. Around our high school graduation time, Ito Makoto's family sold off their domestic assets. He was preparing to go to the United States to pursue a better life. But later, for reasons unknown, he came back. He squandered away billions in assets. The family fell into decline. After he returned, he started contacting Liu Ruyan constantly. The frail and sickly person he once was had now developed depression. Because of this, Liu Ruyan started coming home later. She would always inform me in advance. She tried to have dinner at home whenever possible. Ito Makoto also added me as a friend every time Liu Ruyan was at his place. He would send me some harmless, indifferent pictures. They were meant to express his gratitude. At first, I didn't pay much attention, but as Liu Ruyan came home later and later, Ito Makoto's videos became more and more frequent, and the captions grew warmer. We began to argue more often. He would always explain that Ito Makoto had no other friends or relatives here. He was just helping as a friend. He would even ask me, "Don't you understand his personality?" As usual. I forgave him. Until one day, he didn't come home all night. He just sent me a brief message saying he had something to do and wouldn't be home. Looking at that short message, I had a bad feeling. I couldn't get through to him on the phone. It wasn't until the next day, when I saw Ito Makoto's social media. He had posted a video. In the video, he was lying on the sofa. In the kitchen, there was a woman moving around. The caption read, "Because I have you by my side at night. Suddenly, everything feels right." Wasn't that Liu Ruyan? She never did any housework at home, but was busy running around in other people's homes. I stayed up all night worrying, while she was spending the whole night taking care of someone else. I grabbed my coat and drove straight to Ito Makoto's house. I just happened to see them coming out of the house. Ito Makoto saw me first. He stopped to fix Liu Ruyan's clothes. His actions were ambiguous. Liu Ruyan, on the other hand, was seriously talking on the phone, with no reaction. My temper flared and I stormed over. I grabbed Ito Makoto and threw him down the steps. Then came a flurry of punches and kicks. It ended with a few well-aimed slaps. I slowly started to calm down, but when I saw Ito Makoto's leg bent at an unnatural angle, I knew I had hit him too hard. Liu Ruyan hurried to him, trying to help him up, but her expression showed even more pain. "It's broken." Liu Ruyan quickly dropped her hand. Ito Makoto, who had been helped up, fell to the ground again. Another painful scream echoed. "But what are you doing?" "He had an episode of his depression tonight, acting like he's dying. I sent you a message." I looked at him and said nothing had happened between us. That day, Liu Ruyan unexpectedly didn't get angry. Instead, she patiently tried to explain to me. I glared at her in anger. She was clearly scared by my expression. I coldly said, "I'll believe anything you say. Then I'll go to a nightclub and find a young girl. Tomorrow, I'll say nothing happened either. You'd better find evidence. Otherwise, we're done for." After venting my anger, I turned and left the scene. Liu Ruyan crazily chased after me, but was stopped by Ito Makoto's pained voice. She hurriedly dialed 120 and took him to the hospital. I returned home from the nightclub in the early morning. I found Liu Ruyan sitting in the living room, her eyes red and swollen, waiting for me. The moment she saw me, she rushed over to support me. "How much did you drink?" she said as she went to get a towel to wipe my face. I lay on the sofa, and when she wiped my neck, her hand trembled violently, because there were lipstick marks and strawberry hickeys on my neck. She knew I wasn't that kind of person, but she was still heartbroken. Seeing this, I closed my eyes and asked, "Did you?" I answered softly. She stopped her actions. You know my temper. I can put up with everything, but I can't tolerate betrayal. Spending the night at someone else's house. I need an explanation. My tone was cold. She took out her phone and showed me the surveillance footage from Ito Makoto's house. He was scared, so he had installed cameras. Every time, I'd let him go in first. Then I'd follow and turn on the camera. I made sure to maintain a good boundary with my friends. Today, his leg was broken, so I arranged for a caregiver for him. I know you. With your temper, you won't accept an explanation tonight. You'll leave me. I snorted. I'm sleeping here tonight. Don't bother me. You go to your room. After saying that, I turned over and pretended to sleep. She stayed frozen for a while, then went to bed. When I heard her close the door, I immediately got up and checked the surveillance video she had sent. The video showed nothing unusual, so I forgave him. In the following months, Liu Ruyan was busy working hard at home, cooking and doing housework. He said that day he was truly scared. For the first time, he felt like he might lose me. Just when I thought everything was returning to normal, my father fell seriously ill. I arranged for him to be hospitalized and have surgery. Meanwhile, the company had a major deal. I had to personally handle it. The contract was crucial to me. If I landed this, the company could stabilize and grow. The surgery and the contract overlapped. I had no choice but to ask Liu Ruyan to handle the hospital matters. I went to the company myself. After signing the contract and planning to treat the clients to a meal, my mother called. She said Liu Ruyan had taken a call and left. She asked if I could come back. She didn't know what to do. I quickly said goodbye to the clients, telling them I had an urgent family matter. Then I hurried back to the hospital. To my surprise, I ran into my first love, Wen Jingyi, in the hospital room. She had come with her mother for a checkup. My mother said, luckily, we ran into Jingyi, or else I wouldn't have known what to do alone. Wen Jingyi was even more beautiful than before. Her smile was warm and captivating. Her features were exquisite. She wore casual clothes that made her seem very capable. You're even more beautiful. I don't know how, but these words slipped out of my mouth. Instead of thanking her first, maybe it was because she was just beautiful. She smiled at me and said, "You're still so silly, but you've also become more mature." Wen Jingyi's family and mine have been family friends for generations. Her father was a famous pianist. Wen Jingyi went to Europe during high school to chase her dreams. But it's not safe there now, so she came back. Before transferring schools, we were almost inseparable. We played husband and wife since elementary school. We were always together until high school. A few days before her family left, Wen Jingyi stayed at my house the whole time. She said her favorite food was what my mom cooked. After she left, I was sad for a long time. We kept in touch. We had planned to treat them to a meal. She had agreed. But then she took a phone call. She said she had something urgent, and the meal would have to wait. So I saw them off at the hospital. I ensured the surgery went smoothly. I settled my parents in. I found them a caregiver. Then I went back to the company to get busy. I got home at 9 p.m. The house was pitch black. Liu Ruyan hadn't returned yet. I called, but no one answered. I didn't call again. I went to bed with a stomach full of frustration. The next morning, I was woken up by the sound of the kitchen. I walked in and saw Liu Ruyan was back, cooking nutritious porridge. When she saw me, her expression was somewhat flustered. "Baby, did I wake you up? It's still early. Why don't you go back to sleep for a while? I'll call you when breakfast is ready." I stared at her. "Don't you plan on explaining yesterday's incident? What was so important? That you left my parents at the hospital, making them worry and walk around the lobby in panic? You didn't answer the phone last night. You didn't come home the whole night. Do you think this can just be brushed off?" Liu Ruyan's face was full of guilt. She tried to shake me off. "Husband, don't be like this. I know I was wrong. Yesterday, it was Ito-chung who called me. He fell while attaching something himself. He could walk before, but now he's fractured his bone. His family ... is and just me, a childhood friend. I do think you broke his leg. He didn't call the police, so I just wanted to go take care of him. I really have no other intentions. I could see that Liu Ruyan's expression didn't seem fake, but I still couldn't forgive her. Do you know why I hit him? So this porridge is for him, right? Liu Ruyan, have you ever cooked a single meal for me and the kid at home? At home, you're always the one being taken care of, cooking for other men, and taking care of them. You're perfectly capable of that. All you talk about is how I hit him, but you never mention why I did it. He's the one being pretentious, staying the night with someone else's wife at his place. Shouldn't I have hit him? I even think I went easy on him. Liu Ruyan kept comforting me, but her hands never stopped scooping porridge into the thermos. Honey, it's still early. When our son wakes up, you can heat up the porridge, take him to school, and then take the thermos and just leave. Well, I spent half a day talking, and once I dropped the kid off at school, I finished up things at the company. When I opened my phone, I saw a new post from Ito Chang. He leisurely lay on the bed. He opened his mouth and drank the porridge that tasted like Liu Ruyan. Liu Ruyan, as if taking care of a child, blew on the porridge to cool it and fed it to him. The caption said, "This porridge is best when fed to you." In my memory, not to mention me, even our son, has never been treated like this from childhood to now. I was irritated. Can you post on WeChat with your hands but not drink the porridge yourself? It'd be a shame not to break those hands. Then I drove straight to the hospital. I pinned Ito Chung down on the hospital bed, and once again, gave him a good beating. I got into another big argument with Liu Ruyan. I left with the room full of onlookers without looking back. I'm not the kind of person who'll let myself suffer in silence. When I feel wronged, I need to vent. But after being married to Liu Ruyan for so many years and having a son, I still couldn't bring myself to divorce her. After all, she was good to me in the past. So we entered a period of Cold War. Liu Ruyan didn't come home for 7 days. Ito Chang continued posting on WeChat as usual. It was always videos of Liu Ruyan taking care of him. Now he also had a bandage on his head. With such a serious injury, he still posted on WeChat trying to provoke me. What I couldn't stand the most was my wife staying out all night, especially when she was with another man. They say Cold Wars hurt relationships, and that's absolutely true. I worked hard every day, came home to take care of our son. While seeing Ito Chang's posts on WeChat, I stayed awake until dawn. This Sunday, I had originally planned to spend the whole day at the amusement park with our son. After all, he hadn't seen his mother these past few days. I was feeling a bit down. We were just about to leave. Liu Ruyan pushed the door open and entered. His eyes were full of apology and guilt when our son saw his mother. He excitedly rushed into her arms. They were so affectionate. Liu Ruyan was always so patient with our son, even more so than I was. "Where are you going? Can I come along?" he asked while holding our son. His gaze drifted toward me. Our son jumped up excitedly. "Dad is taking me to the amusement park today. Mom is here, so the three of us can go together." That's awesome watching them enjoy each other's company. I felt mixed emotions inside. After all, they hadn't paid much attention to me these past few days. Our son was still much closer to his mother. Liu Ruyan noticed my displeasure. He set our son down and then took my hand, acting coquettish. "Hubby, I could have come back last night, but who knew you would go and beat him up again?" As a result, he got a mild concussion. His eyes were swollen and couldn't open. I had to take care of him for a few days. Today, his mother came, so I came back. Besides, Ito Chung is a decent guy, but his mother said he was hit by a car. Enough. Don't mention his name in front of me. I interrupted him. The anger in my heart was hard to suppress. Does he think I won't remember breaking his leg? Does he want to post on WeChat to provoke me? I feel like I went too easy on him. I should have given him a severe concussion. Hubby, please don't be angry. I'm back now, aren't I? Today, I'm not going anywhere. I'll just stay with you and our son, okay? Before he could finish speaking, my phone rang. It was the Middle Eastern client who came to inspect the company a few days ago. They wanted to place an order. This was an opportunity I couldn't afford to miss. So I quickly said I have something to take care of and rushed out. Unsuccessful in love, but successful at work. This past year, the company's big orders had been breaking records. Now, we were entering international markets. Things were progressing smoothly. The Middle Eastern client was very easy to work with. The contract was signed quickly. At noon, I booked the most luxurious hotel in the city to treat them. I also wanted to show appreciation to my employees. Just when the atmosphere was at its peak, my phone rang again. It was the police station calling. They said my son had gotten separated from the family at the amusement park. He was now at the police station. They asked me to come pick him up. My mind went blank. I hurriedly made arrangements. Then I drove straight to the police station. While I was on the way, I called Liu Ruyan several times, but he didn't answer. When I arrived at the police station, I saw that my son was being well taken care of by the officers. I breathed a sigh of relief. After thanking them, I took my son home. After asking, I found out that they had just arrived at the amusement park. Liu Ruyan received a phone call and hurriedly left, leaving our 5-year-old son alone and unable to find his mother. He cried loudly. The staff made several announcements over the loudspeaker, but no one responded. In the end, they had no choice but to call the police. After hearing my son recount what happened, I was filled with rage. How could he abandon a 5-year-old child and leave? He had once discarded me for his old love, and now he had left our son stranded at the amusement park. I decided that I would no longer forgive him. I took my son back to the suburban villa. I printed out the divorce agreement myself. Liu Ruyan quickly returned my call. It turned out that she hadn't missed my message, but simply didn't want to respond. Husband, what are you doing? Don't scare me. Ito Chung sent me a video saying she wanted to kill herself. I can't just stand by and do nothing. Her voice was frantic and anxious. I coldly interrupted. Where's our son? Do you know where he is? She screamed. The phone dropped to the ground. The call ended abruptly. I comforted my frightened son and prepared lunch for him. At noon, Liu Ruyan called again. Is our son with you? Why didn't you tell me? This morning was driving me crazy. Now you're thinking about our son? When you left him at the amusement park, what were you thinking? Did you think you could abandon my parents and me for your white moonlight? But I didn't expect you to neglect our 5-year-old son as well. Tomorrow, 9 a.m., at the Civil Affairs Bureau. I'll be there to handle the divorce. I won't speak of this lightly. This is a decision I've thought through carefully. I hung up the phone. My son asked, "What about Dad? Are you going to divorce Mom?" I nodded without saying a word. I don't want you and Mom to get a divorce. I love Dad, and I love Mom. Can't you two stay together? The place where the three of us are together is home. My son's words made my eyes redden. He's only 5 years old. How could he understand so much? Did your mom teach you to say that? Seeing that I wasn't pleased, my son shook his head. No, I learned it from watching TV shows with Mom online. Those kids whose parents get divorced are so pitiful. My son shook my arm. Looking at his little face, which resembled mine, my heart softened. Liu Ruyan came back, humbly trying to please me. I didn't bring up the divorce again. Since that day, I put all my energy into work. After work, I no longer hurried home, but chose to hang out with friends or entertain clients. Sometimes I wouldn't return home for several days. Other times, I'd be drunk and have someone send me home. Liu Ruyan would be at home every night, preparing a table of food I loved to eat, although I never actually tasted it. He always prepared hangover soup and stomach-nourishing porridge in advance for me. When I was drunk, He would laboriously help me bathe and change clothes. Then he'd help me to bed. In the morning, he'd have breakfast ready for me, making me feel comfortable after a hangover. I mistakenly thought it was the alcohol that helped, but didn't realize it was his thoughtful care. I always hurried out when he wasn't home. I had never noticed his fatigue and dark circles under his eyes. This afternoon, when the chef from the company canteen delivered my meal, I received a call from my mom. When Jingy and her mother were shopping with my mom, when my mom nearly fell on the escalator. It was when Jingy who caught her, but she herself twisted her ankle. I rushed to the mall immediately, sent Jingy to the hospital, and took care of everything. At noon, I bought her some materials she liked. As I passed by a hospital room, I heard a familiar voice. Liu Ruyan, you haven't visited me in days. Why do you look so bad? It was Ito Cheng speaking. Liu Ruyan was sitting beside him. He didn't answer. He just silently took out a thermal container from his bag and placed it on the bed. Ito Chung was holding a phone in his hand. After waiting for a while, seeing Liu Ruyan not reacting, he turned to ask him, Ruyan, aren't you feeding my mom today? I'm not in a good condition right now. Liu Ruyan said with a serious face, you're pretty good with your phone. Are you doing it yourself? I knew him too well. He always had a cheerful smile. But now, his expression clearly showed he wasn't happy. Ito Chung felt a bit awkward after he said that, and quietly put his phone away. His tone softened. Ruyan, the reason I asked you to come today is because when you're not around, I feel empty inside. Since your husband hit me, I felt like I've been living a life worse than death. My friends have all advised me to call the police, but I didn't agree. They don't understand the relationship between us. Liu Ruyan interrupted him. You've said this 100 times. There's no need to keep repeating it. His brows were tightly furrowed, looking a bit impatient. But he still picked up the spoon and brought the food to Ito Cheng's mouth. At that moment, an angry nurse pushed the door open. You, a grown man, what are you standing here for? Either go in or leave. Blocking the door, what's that supposed to be? As soon as the door opened, both Liu Ruyan and Ito Cheng saw me. When Liu Ruyan saw me, he froze, his spoon falling to the ground with a loud clink, and the hot porridge spilled down onto Ito Cheng's stomach. He yelped in pain. Liu Ruyan didn't even glance at him. He ran over and grabbed my hand. Honey, you've misunderstood. I waved my hand, telling him not to say anything. I walked over to Ito Cheng. The nurse had already cleaned the porridge off him. After the nurse finished checking him, I patted Ito Cheng's face. You're living pretty well. My wife delivers food to you. My son doesn't even get this kind of treatment. It looks like I should knock all your teeth out. Ito Cheng trembled in fear when he heard that. I mean, what'd I say? Every time I said I'd hit you, I did it. Ruyan, you need to control him. Don't let him go too far. If he gets hit a few more times, I might actually have a better year. Ito Cheng, speaking as he moved towards the wall. That scumbag really makes me sick. Liu Ruyan grabbed my hand. Honey, calm down. Please don't make this a bigger deal, okay? His tone was soft. It didn't seem like he was worried about Ito Cheng. It seemed like he was comforting me instead. I lowered my fist. Ruyan, you're calling me so affectionately. Look, even my wife feels sorry for you. She's telling me not to hit you. Fine, I'll let you off this time. But my wife won't feed you this meal anymore. I'll do it myself. I grabbed the food container with one hand and pried open his mouth with the other. I poured the food inside. Then I used chopsticks to shove it in further. Liu Ruyan tried to stop me, but I gave him a look that made him freeze. 2 plates of food went down. The third plate just wouldn't go in, so I poured it right onto his face. You still want to call the cops, huh? Let me help you peel it off. I pulled out my phone and was about to dial. Liu Ruyan snatched the phone away. Honey, you've lost it. You're going to get arrested. Why would the police arrest me? He forced my wife to stay at his place for a night. I went to him, we were together. Even though he got hurt, he was in the wrong first. I'll just pay him some money. Feel sorry for him if you want. This little issue, I can deal with it. I'll make more money in the future. Get a package deal. Make a few extra payments each month. I'll save a lot of money. After that, I threw the 3 dishes and porridge all over his face. That's enough for today. I'll come back tomorrow. I didn't look back as I walked out of the hospital room. When I reached Bai Jingyi's room, I opened the lids of the takeout boxes and placed them on the dining table. She looked at them, her eyes lighting up. After all these years, you still remember what I like to eat. Life has been so hard for me abroad all these years. I would dream of eating the dishes Andy used to make. Since you like it, eat more. Just a while ago, I was so angry, but now my tone softened immediately. I didn't know if it was because I was facing my childhood sweetheart, or because of the outburst I just had. The anger was all vented. Now I felt like I had nothing bothering me. I put a little bit of each dish into a small bowl, so it would be easier for her to eat. Just then, a loud crashing sound of a door slamming shattered the peaceful atmosphere. Could you introduce who this is? I saw Liu Ruyin storming in with a furious look on her face. I felt extremely displeased. I even had a sense of disgust toward her. This is the person who left my parents in the hospital and ran around handling the paperwork for me. She's also the one who accompanied my mother shopping today and got hurt while saving her. She's also a childhood friend I grew up with. After hearing this, Liu Ruyin's eyes flickered with guilt for a moment, but then she smiled and walked forward to greet her. Hello, little sister. I'm Boda's wife. I often hear Boda talk about you. She's like a sister to him. Bai Jingyi, with great enthusiasm, called out sister-in-law in response to her. You just fed your moonlight some food. Aren't you going to wash his face and wipe his mouth? Jingyi is fine. I'll take care of her. You should go back now. Otherwise, he'll start making a fuss again. I deliberately called her Jingyi in front of him, because Ido-chan always calls her Ruyin, and she didn't refuse. Honey, do you have to do this in front of outsiders? I've told you so many times. It's all your misunderstanding. I've already arranged a caregiver for him. I won't take care of him anymore. Liu Ruyin was cautious, with a tone full of flattery. She intentionally emphasized the words outsiders. I didn't want to have an unpleasant scene with Liu Ruyin in front of Bai Jingyi, so I agreed with her. I'll go back home once I'm done. Only then did she leave, looking very reluctant. In the evening, after Bai Jingyi finished her meal, I arranged a caregiver for her. Only then did I reluctantly go home. Being with Bai Jingyi always made me feel like we had endless things to talk about. Her topics always interested me. I spoke, and she always cooperated well. Sometimes she even threw me looks full of admiration. After spending so much time with Liu Ruyin, our conversations had become mundane and unremarkable. I also hoped to hear her praise me a little. Perhaps it was because we knew each other too well. Our conversations were mostly just about daily matters. There's nothing much to stir excitement. Perhaps this is what they call the absence of emotional value. It could also be the reason why the affection between couples slowly fades. I returned home, took off my coat, and slipped into my slippers. As I walked into the living room, a fragrance filled the air. My son ran over and jumped into my arms. He chattered nonstop. He told me that today his mom bought him many toys and treats. The joy of a child cannot be faked. But when it comes to Liu or Yu Yan, I no longer feel the same way I used to. He looked happy to see me return. He asked me to wait a moment. He said there were only 2 dishes left before dinner was ready. I glanced at the table, already filled with dishes. I casually responded to a few things and then collapsed on the sofa, too exhausted to lift a finger. Coming home, I felt completely drained. I just wanted to close my eyes and rest for a while, but I ended up falling asleep. When I woke up, it was already past 10. I had slept for 3 hours. Liu Yin saw that I was awake. She reminded me to wash my hands. She went to reheat the food. My son put down the snacks in his hand. Excitedly, he said, "Dad's awake. We can eat now." We sat down together. My son eagerly dug into his meal. "Eat slowly. No one's going to take it from you." Liu Yin softly chided him. Then she looked at me gently. "You used to cook before. Today, try my cooking instead." Saying this, she pushed over a large plate of peeled shrimp. "You love shrimp the most. Try and see how it tastes." "Mom, I also love shrimp the most. I want some too." My son, with his mouth already greasy, called out to his mom. Liu Yin scooped a bit into a small bowl. She placed it in front of my son. "You and your dad not only look alike, but even your habits and preferences are exactly the same. In 10 years, our son will surely be even more handsome than you." I didn't respond to Liu Yan's warm gaze. I just kept my head down eating. But after just a few bites, I felt full, so I got up to take a shower. I could feel his gaze following me the entire time. When I entered the bathroom, after the shower, I went straight to bed. Half asleep, I felt someone unbracing me. I opened my eyes and looked. Liu Yin was sitting on top of me, unbuttoning my nightgown. I hurriedly pushed her away. "I'm really tired tonight. I have a meeting to attend tomorrow morning." With that, I adjusted my nightgown. Then I turned to my side. I could hear her sobbing behind me. "Honey, can you stop treating me like this? Your attitude these days is scaring me. Didn't we agree on every 3 days? It's been months, and you haven't touched me. For these past months, haven't you been with Ito-chan? How can I touch you? Should I go in front of Ito-chan to touch you? Or should we both touch you together?" I said in frustration. These words slipped out before I could think. Liu Yin cried even harder. "Honey, you know my personality. You know what kind of person I am. So why would you tarnish me like this?" I started taking care of Ito-chan in the hospital. "Wasn't it because you hurt him? Do you think I was afraid he would call the police? Later, I waited for you at home, but you didn't come back for days. Every time you came back, you were drunk. I was worried you weren't feeling well, so I stayed up all night to take care of you. I really love you. Your change these past few days has made you feel like a stranger to me. I'm scared. I've realized that the person I once knew so well has become a complete stranger. Has your moonlight returned? And you've changed your heart?" That day, when I saw the way you looked at him outside the door, it was exactly the way you used to look at me when you loved me. Clearly, it's you who's changed your heart. Yet you're putting all the blame on me. Jiboda, this isn't me being humble. Why did I break his leg? Before I hit him, weren't you taking care of him enough? Jingy got hurt while trying to save my mom. I went to the hospital to take care of him. How much more could I bear? Who is Ito-chan to you? You live in his house and take care of him. Do you even know what he's thinking? How do you think I feel? You're also a company boss. Can't you see what he might be thinking?" With that, I got out of bed. I went to the guest room to sleep. Days passed one after another, when Jingyi and I were almost inseparable every day. Once her foot injury healed, she came to my company to work as my secretary. One day after work, she stopped me. She said she wanted to treat me to dinner and hoped I would look out for her in the future. We went to a restaurant that was reasonably priced, but the ambience was quite charming. After ordering, we began to chat again. She laughed as she pulled open my shirt, pointing to my shoulder and saying, "I still remember leaving a bite mark here before I left. I told you not to forget me. How come there's no scar? You must have watched too many dramas back then. Besides, you didn't really bite me. It was just a little scratch. How could it leave a scar? But you were quite clever. When it was my turn to bite you, you ran away. Hemph, you still have the nerve to say that? Everyone else bites the shoulder. But you were all goofy and went straight for my face. If I didn't run, wouldn't that have been a mess?" When Jingyi pretended to glare at me in mock anger. "By the way, I still haven't asked you ... How come after all those years abroad, you never found a boyfriend? I've been abroad too. A goddess like you is way better than those foreign women. There's no way no one chased after you. I never liked it there when I first arrived abroad. I knew I would come back. Besides, the mindset and lifestyle of foreigners are so different. I still think our country's men are better. Then tell me, how did you meet your sister-in-law? You're so silly. Your sister-in-law must have had a tough time all these years. So I told her everything about me and Liu Ruyan, from beginning to end. I even mentioned Ito-chung. Just talking about him put me in a bad mood. And when I'm in a bad mood, I tend to drink more. The next day, when I woke up, I found myself at Wen Jingyi's place. I came out of the room. She had already made breakfast. We ate together, then headed to the company. Who would have thought that as soon as we got out of the car, we saw you Ruyan? She walked up to me, holding back her anger. Where did you stay last night? I drank too much last night. It was Jingyi who brought me back to her place. So, you stayed with her last night? What's the big deal? You've done this kind of thing plenty of times before. Are you here to accuse me now? She was speechless for a moment from what I said. I didn't care about her. I just went straight into the company. By the afternoon, when Jingyi and I were about to go out for lunch nearby, as we stepped outside, we saw Liu Ruyan still waiting outside. Honey, I need to talk to you. Liu Ruyan tried to grab my arm, but I dodged her. Go ahead, I said, glancing at Wen Jingyi. She didn't say anything. Wen Jingyi quickly found a reason to leave. Honey, are you doing this on purpose to anger me with the same thing again? Or are you serious about her? What's wrong with me angering you? So what if I'm serious? My tone was cold. If you want to anger me, I'll allow you to be with him once. But only once. Because me and Ito-chung are innocent. It's my fault for not setting clear boundaries. I'm willing to take responsibility for my mistake. If you're serious about him, I'm willing to let you to be together. I'll divorce you. I love you and I want you to be happy, but not by staying at home every day, looking unhappy. You have no idea how much it hurts me to see you like this. I can't take it either. You're always so cold and it feels like I'm frozen. As she spoke, Liu Ruyan was already in tears. Looking at Liu Ruyan with blurry eyes, I felt calm inside, like still water. Liu Ruyan, Wen Jingyi and I are clear and innocent, but the problem is, I no longer have feelings for you. I remember back then when you frowned, my heart would feel like it was being pricked by needles. Now, even if you cry like rain, I won't feel a thing. Before, when I came home and saw you I felt and our warm son inside. We could talk all night long. But now, when I come home, I feel like there's nothing to say. After hearing my words, she stood there stunned. Tears flowed endlessly from her eyes. It felt like time had frozen. After what felt like a long while, she finally came to her senses. Honey, I know I was wrong. Tomorrow is our son's birthday. Can you spend the day with us like you used to, with me and our son? After that, I'll set you free. This request isn't too much to ask. I nodded. The next day, I arrived early at the agreed-upon hotel. Liu Ruyan had reserved the entire hotel. She and our son were already waiting inside. As soon as our son saw me, he ran toward me from a distance. He said it had been several days since we last saw each other, and he missed me. I hugged him and walked over to Liu Ruyan. The staff pushed over a huge cake tower. I lit the candles on top. Make a wish, baby. I kissed our son on the cheek, because I wished for the three of us to always love each other and to always live together. Before our son could finish speaking, the sound of a phone ringing broke the moment. Liu Ruyan glanced at her phone and awkwardly hung up. Then, with a gentle smile, she said, "Go ahead, make your wish. Son, I hope that me, Daddy, and Mommy will always." The phone rang again. Liu Ruyan decisively hung up once more. But this time, No one asked our son to continue his wish. The atmosphere turned a little awkward. Our son's eyes darted between the two of us. Another phone rang, breaking the silence. Still stammering, if this keeps happening, our son won't be able to make a wish. I said helplessly. Liu Yuyan answered the phone. But her usual calm demeanor was gone. Instead, she shouted angrily into the phone. Are you sick or something? I told you already. Today is our son's birthday. We're supposed to be together as a family. Why do you keep calling? After a few words from the other side, Liu Yuyan's face turned pale and tense. She hung up the phone. In a panic, she said to me, Honey, Ito Chung had an accident. He's in ICU. His mother called me. And I don't know what to do. I'll be right back. Wait for me. With that, she rushed out the door. I grabbed her arm. I wasn't trying to stop her. But I said, Liu Yuyan, let me say one thing. Ito Chung will be fine. Don't worry. Drive carefully on the way. Then I let go of her. Liu Yuyan gave me a complex look for a moment, but still she left. At that moment, I was completely disheartened. I had made myself clear. Yet she still chose to believe that something would happen to Ito Chang. Looking at our son's disappointed face, I realized Liu Yuyan wouldn't be back tonight. The birthday felt so lonely. It was pitiful for our child. I thought for a moment and decided to call Wen Jingyi. I asked her to come over and spend the birthday with us. Wen Jingyi arrived quickly. As soon as she came, the atmosphere lifted instantly. After we finished the cake, she insisted on dragging us out to play. She said it was too boring to stay in the hotel all day. We have the whole hotel to ourselves. How could we waste that? I hadn't even had a chance to feel sorry before she dragged me out the door. We first went to the ocean park. In the afternoon, we moved on to Happy Valley and the Science Museum. In the evening, we even went to watch a children's theater show. By the end of the day, my son's smile hadn't faded once. Wen Jingyi and the child had so much fun, but it was because she was playing even more wildly than him. Sometimes, when my son was already tired, she would drag him to keep playing. As expected by night, Liu Yuyan didn't come back. My son was still clinging to Wen Jingyi, refusing to let her leave. I had no choice but to ask her to stay the night and sleep with him. I sat alone in the living room, turned off the lights, and smoked a cigarette. I smoked the whole night away. In my mind, it was like watching a movie, replaying every detail between Liu Yuyan and me. From meeting each other to falling in love, to now, when we can't even speak to each other. When morning came, I had finally let go. Around noon, Liu Yuyan called. She said she was waiting for me at the Civil Affairs Bureau to handle the paperwork. I was a bit surprised. I didn't expect her to be so proactive. I asked Wen Jingyi to stay home and watch our son. I drove myself to the Civil Affairs Bureau. Liu Yuyan was already waiting at the door. When she saw me, she immediately walked in. I was a bit stunned. What was going on? There weren't many people, and the divorce procedures were completed quickly. There were no issues with the assets. After all, we both had our own companies. But the custody of the child became a problem. We both wanted our child. We went to a cafe to discuss the child's custody. Liu Yuyan begged me to give her our son. She said she couldn't lose him again. I firmly disagreed. Just the thought of our son calling Ito Chung dad was unbearable to me. If she wouldn't agree, I was prepared to go to court. I didn't believe the court would grant her custody of our son. After all, she had once abandoned him at an amusement park. Liu Yuyan explained, saying that there was really nothing between her and Ito Chung. She admitted that she had spent a few days with him, but that was all in the past. She and Ito Chung had known each other since childhood. Later, when Ito Chung confessed his feelings, she accepted. But soon after, Ito Chung's family moved to the US, and they broke up. At the time, she was feeling down, and that's when she met me. She confessed her feelings to me, and we fell in love. She gave me all her love. She swore that it was over with Ito Chung. they would never be together again. After hearing her story, I finally realized that yesterday, Ito Cheng and his mother had intentionally deceived Liu Yin into coming over. Ito Cheng hadn't had any accident at all. They just wanted to ruin our birthday and drive us to divorce. Today, Liu Yin learned the truth and had a huge argument with them. She felt embarrassed and couldn't keep pestering me, so she took the initiative to ask for a divorce. In the end, she knelt down and begged me to let her have our son. Considering our years together, I agreed. She also left the house we used to live in for him. She also promised me that I could visit our son anytime. She wouldn't marry Ito Cheng, and she wouldn't let our son call him dad. As for her marrying someone else, that was her freedom. I finally gave myself a long break, deciding to take a trip to France. I'd always heard that France was the city of romance, where even the air smelled like love. But recently, I'd seen a travel blogger named Cousin on Douyin who criticized France and painted it in a terrible light. I was skeptical, because seeing is believing. When I got to France, I was immediately repulsed by the piles of feces on the streets and the stench of urine in the subway. The Eiffel Tower and the Champs-Élysées were surrounded by decay. It seemed like Cousin was right after all. I was wrong. After just a few days in France, Wang Jingyi called me. She said my dad had been hospitalized again. His condition wasn't good, and she urged me to come back quickly. I flew home immediately. At the hospital, they had suggested we give up on treatment. They said my dad didn't have much longer. They told us to let him do whatever he wanted. My dad's voice was barely audible. I had to lean in close to hear him. My mom translated, saying that my dad wanted to see me married, so that he could die in peace. Marriage wasn't something to be taken lightly. You couldn't just grab someone off the street and get married. My mom blurted out that Wang Jingyi would be a good match. She had watched me grow up. If she hadn't gone abroad, we might already have kids. These words made me break into a cold sweat. She was still just a young woman who had never even had a boyfriend. How could she possibly look at a divorced man like me, especially one with a child? And then there was Wang Jingyi right in front of me, making the situation even more awkward. Before I could even say anything, Wang Jingyi quickly took over the conversation, saying Annie ... willing, I just don't know what Brother Boda thinks. My mom immediately said, as long as you agree, what does it matter to him? He's a divorced man. What other opinions could he have? This is truly my own mother. I hadn't even spoken yet, and she was already scolding me. They actually started discussing wedding details. I hurriedly interrupted them, citing work as an excuse. Otherwise, they would have really started booking hotels. Driving with Wang Jingyi, we both felt a bit awkward at first, not saying anything. I spoke first. Thank you for covering for me in front of my parents. Wang Jingyi then said, actually, what I said earlier was true. I'm willing to marry you. I came back this time just for you. I only found out that you were divorced after I got back. Having lived abroad for many years, she wasn't shy at all. But I'm divorced, and I have a child. Aren't you bothered by that? I asked her, what era are we in? Why are you still so old-fashioned? I just want to ask you one thing. Do you like me? Wang Jingyi stared at me with wide eyes and asked, do you like me? Yes, I like you, but liking you isn't enough. There's no but about it. How about we go check out a wedding planning company today? So we went to a very reputable wedding planning company. Although Wang Jingyi had been abroad for many years, she was especially fond of traditional Chinese culture. We decided on a classical wedding style. I customized the most luxurious phoenix crown and bridal veil for her. This phoenix crown and veil were nothing short of expensive, but they had no flaws besides the price. Elegant and dignified, noble and graceful. I stared at them for a long time and couldn't help but marvel. Old traditions are truly the best. After a whole day of work, we finally settled on the wedding theme and style. Next up, we had to choose a hotel. Of course, we picked the most luxurious one. And since I had a generous budget, the hotel even let us stay in the presidential suite. We stayed there until the wedding was over. That presidential suite was truly extravagant. After a shower, I lay on the bed, casually scrolling through messages in the company group chat. At that moment, when Jingyi also finished washing up, she was already beautiful beyond compare. But now, with wet hair, she was even more mesmerizing. It made my heart race. I couldn't keep my composure, so I pulled her onto the bed. "Brother Boda, wait. I haven't dried my hair yet." She smiled and said, "I love the look of wet hair. Why are you still calling me Brother Boda? Watch how I punish you." I pretended to be angry and lightly tapped her. She stopped insisting. Afterward, when the passion subsided, I was so tired I didn't want to move. When Jingyi, on the other hand, was busy tidying up the bed, just then the phone rang. It was Liu Ruyan calling. "It's so late. What could she possibly want?" I answered the phone. My voice was hoarse, with a hint of desire lingering. There was silence on the other end for a moment. "Boda, what are you doing?" She probably noticed something was off with my voice. I replied, "Sometimes, what I do has nothing to do with you." I had been in a good mood. But after her question, I felt a bit annoyed. "Where are you now? Who are you with?" "In a hotel, doing business with my wife." "Are you satisfied now?" When Jingyi heard me say that, she gently pinched me. "So fast, you already have a wife? Is it that childhood sweetheart of yours who just came back from abroad? Abroad is so open, so chaotic, and people from there, you still dare to take them? You're calling late at night just to throw shade? Isn't Ito-chan also someone who came back from abroad? And aren't you two doing just fine? Do you even have a reason for calling or not?" "Boda, I was going to give you a chance, but it looks like ... up before she could finish." I muttered to the hung-up phone, "What a crazy woman." Then I turned to Jingyi and said, "Baby, let's continue." The next day, when Jingyi and I were busy working on the wedding details, the invitations had already been sent out. The wedding was set for 5 days later. It was an auspicious date. At noon, Liu Ruyan called again. She said there was something she needed to discuss. After all, she's the mother of my child. Some things are better said clearly. I gave Jingyi a quick heads up and left. "Goodbye, Liu Ruyan." She looked haggard. Her condition was poor. Her first words were, "Ito-chung is dead." I asked calmly, "When did this happen?" "Just last night when I called you." It turned out that during this time, Ito-chung had been relentlessly calling Liu Ruyan, but she no longer trusted him. Until yesterday, Ito-chung had climbed up to the rooftop with a cane, sending Liu Ruyan a video, even though he had leaned far out. Liu Ruyan still didn't agree to meet him. In the end, his foot slipped, and he fell from the 28th floor. He died on impact, shattered beyond recognition. When I saw his death, I surprisingly didn't feel sorrow. Instead, I felt that the barrier between us was gone, and you could return to my side now. So I called you as soon as I could. But when I said that, she broke down in tears. I held her in my arms and comforted her. "Although we were no longer husband and wife, you will always be the mother of my child. No matter what happens, I won't ignore you. Look forward, not back." After an afternoon of comforting, Liu Ruyan finally came to terms with it. "When are you two getting married? I'll send you a big gift then." On the day of the wedding, 5 days later, the ceremony was grander than I could have imagined. The most prominent people in town were all there. Jingyi was wearing the custom-made phoenix crown and bridal veil worth millions. When she appeared, everyone was stunned. I held her hand. Together we accepted the blessings from friends and family. The wedding went very smoothly. Liu Ruyan didn't come to the wedding, but the big gift she promised did arrive. It was 50% of the shares from her company. She handed the company over to me and used her own funds to build an orphanage. Later, she invested most of the company's profits into the charity sector. It was her most beloved industry, because she had always had a heart for helping the vulnerable. She gave me half of the company's shares, because she was afraid that, in the heat of the moment, she'd only do good deeds, and it would also serve as an asset for her son. In fact, she was overthinking it. I would never neglect my son. Although when Jingyi had also given me to children, in my eyes, they were all the same. Liu Ruyan was too busy, so my son spent more time living with me. When Jingyi treated him like her own mother. After dinner, I watched as the maid cleaned up the dishes. When Jingyi and my eldest son were comforting the two younger ones, creating a warm and harmonious scene. In that moment, I felt that this was happiness. While I was reflecting on it, Liu Ruyan called me. We talked about her recent matters, and she reminded me to take care of my health, not to overwork myself. I also expressed some concern for her, and after chatting for a while, we hung up. After all, we had been together for many years, and she was still the mother of my child. Even though we didn't live together, I still wished for her happiness, and for everything to go smoothly for her. This is the end of the full text. Thank you for watching and liking.